red button to show up. Oh, wait, we're live. Oh, my God, we're in the green room. So I'm here with our favorite guests, of course. And of course, I'm Ray. Bala is out. He'll be back on our next episode. I'm here with my amazing producer, Elle. And of course, we've got our three guests. I'm going to introduce them in reverse order. We're going to change the format up this week. We're going to have all three guests on at the same time for an interesting panel discussion. So let's start with Angela. Angela, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about today?
Austin, Texas. We're going to be talking about independent verification and validation of hardware.
Very, very cool. You one of these? Or?
One of these.
Shaka.
Excellent. Trent, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about?
You have to coming in from
top secret one. So
coming out of the DC area, and we're going to talk about hardware, chipset forensics, IB&V.
I know it's very, very hot, especially when it comes to routers we don't know about. All right, David, where are you coming from? What are we talking about?
Like Trent, I'm in the blast radius of Washington, D.C., building on the idea that we need to first verify that the hardware is what it is. I think we're also going to dive into how do you even know that that person, that agent that you think you're interacting with really is, and they're not a deep fake or somebody trying to impersonate something else.
Let's start with the fact that, is Herndon in the blast radius?
Depends on the size of the bomb.
Not that you're in Herndon, but that's where all our data is sitting. So I'm just a little concerned.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Elle, for the count. We'll start the show.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the episode of DisrupTV. And of course, I'm Ray Wang, your host for the day. Bala Afshar is going to be back next week in our next show. He's in the middle of some travel. So let me introduce our guest, and especially in this very, very special edition, especially talking about security in an age of AI, and of course, looking at where we are fitting on hardware. Let me introduce our guests in order. It'll be Angela, Trent, and David, who probably doesn't need an introduction. So let's start with Angela. She's CEO of Synderys, and Angela has been she's not just a champion of important causes. She's a lawyer, an entrepreneur. She's someone that actually spanned anything from going to litigation support to software platforms to cybersecurity policy implementation to supply chain. But more importantly, she's been a champion for national security. She founded Synderys, an innovative cybersecurity company leading global tech landscape with a mission to secure, protect, and defend the technology that powers our lives. And today that is AI. So recently selected one of the top 40 cybersecurity CEOs for U.S. government contracting. Angela's commitment to excellence serves as a cornerstone for everything she does, both personally and professionally. So she's briefed the U.S. National Security Council, the House of Reps Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, and the U.S. House Appropriations Committee and its Defense Subcommittee, and the U.S. Armed Service Committee, and countless members of Congress on anything related to cyber intelligence, threat intelligence, strategy, strategic policy development, and more importantly, she's basically a special advisor to the Committee on National Security Systems. That's a very, very important piece of the government apparatus. And of course, she's actually spent time even crafting executive orders on cybersecurity. So she's spoken in almost every defense environment event that you can think of, and probably some private ones we don't know about. But more importantly, we're lucky that she's here with us. So thank you for being on the show, Angela. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Ray. Nice to see you.
Trent, welcome back. You're a Loomis Council member at the Stimson Center. And of course, you've been an FBI special agent. I think you're retired now. You have to tell me if that's true.
I am retired, yeah.
He's been
Just everybody, but
consulting, advising governments and companies on cybersecurity, blockchain, infrastructures, national security, and space. And of course, he served a lot of leadership positions, from being the director of cybersecurity policy for the White House's NSC, and of course, the SAC of the Cyber and Counterintelligence Division for the FBI in Los Angeles, and of course, the FBI Cyber Division's COO and Chief of Cyber Readiness. So, well, you founded this National Cyber Injustice Joint Task Force, which is a very important piece. It's one of the 7 U.S. cybersecurity centers. For those can tell me the other 6, you get a special bonus. And of course, you're still studying? What are you doing? You're getting a PhD at Marymount University?
Get my doctorate, trying to finish up my dissertation research this semester, as a matter of fact.
All right.
On space cyber and space cybersecurity. So
that is impressive, dude. I don't know how you so much time doing this. And I'm just going to introduce David as David. So.
Yeah, I'm your Uber driver. Make sure to
David is the distinguished chair of the Accelerated Stimson Center, of course, principal CEO of LDA Ventures, and of course, he's a partner with us in our AI forum that's going on in DC, September 30th. So he's a distinguished fellow and chair of the Accelerated with the Alfred Lee Loomis Innovation Council. This is a nonpartisan Henry L. Stimson Center. If you haven't seen it, been there. He's also a non-resident distinguished fellow with the Business Executives for National Security, and a CEO and transformation leader for different under-the-radar tech and data ventures, so you can get started in novel situations. We all know him from his role here at Constellation, being speaker, moderator, and of course, very, very important person in bringing very interesting voices into the market. You were named a young global leader by the World Economic Forum, and of course, you also served as advisor to 12 different startups, and of course, playing president, CEO, and strategic advisor roles. So try to grab David when you can.
Oh, well, Ray, that's a very humbling introduction. Hopefully we'll exceed expectations now. So,
well, let's start, right? Let's set the stage. And David, I want you to set the stage by saying, why is this so important now? I mean, we've been doing digitization forever. We've had hardware and tech sitting around all over the place. I mean, wouldn't we have designed this for privacy, safety, identity, security? Like, don't we build this into design? Who would do this after the attack?
You know, a funny thing happened on the way to globalization, which is we embrace globalization. We wanted our technology to not be that expensive, and so the margins in the hardware got so small that unfortunately all those niceties in terms of privacy, security, and the like at the chip level kind of gotten forgotten. At the same time, you know, the good news is, again, we ended up, the United States educated the world, including China, on how to do chips, and they got really good at it. But the trouble is they're not just building chips that are for commercial purposes. They may be building chips that serve their own geopolitical purposes. And so that's why what Angela and her company is doing, and Trent, what he did when he was at the FBI, I'll let him talk a little bit more about it. We need to recognize that when we roll out systems now, we'll do everything possibly right on the software stack and the security stack. But if we don't verify the hardware, it's the equivalent of building castles on sand. And so we really need to take the time now to verify that that hardware that we think it is not calling home. And I'm sure Angela will be able to give us some very specific examples. I will just give an early preview. When I first met her, she had actually her company had won 1 out of 37 companies a bake-off with the DoD, Department of Defense, which is, of course, as we all know, is the Department of War now. And what they found was that not only were routers from a U.S. company that remained nameless, that were in use by the Department of Defense at the time, compromised and actually attempting to phone home. But then when they went to actually go to a warehouse, that warehouse had a failure rate of more than 53% in terms of the technology being exactly what they thought it was.
Well, you know what? We might have those in our satellites in our skies. But Angela, let's start talking about that. I mean, you're the CEO of Synderys, right? You're doing that independent chip validation of what's going on with hardware. What have you seen? Like, there's no foreign actors trying to play this on us, is there?
Oh, no, never, anywhere. No, we actually do see quite a few foreign actors, and they tend to be, and to David's point, that the case he mentioned was kind of the first one that put us on the map, so to speak. We were in an environment where we were told there were no any sorts of counterfeits because the vendors, quote, would not dare sell them to us, and got in there and, to his point, found what we found, but also found some significant benign looking routers that actually had their original chips ripped and replaced with Huawei chips. And those Huawei chips were seeking to dial out and establish exterior communication with adverse third parties. And so that was a huge raise of the eyebrow for everyone involved, because, it was interesting to watch the response, because many people were like, well, just because it was trying to connect doesn't mean that it ever did, or that it actually could. And the reality of that is, regardless of whether it connects or not, it's still a problem, because it's beaconing intelligence about our movements, our placement, the things that we don't want adversaries knowing about what we're doing. And so just having this capability, especially in the high assurance environment that it was in, was highly problematic. And so we were told at the time, oh, this is a one-off, you'll never find another device like this anywhere, either in government or commercial environments. And that's actually not what we found. The intelligence community came back a few months after that finding, after they had done their deep dive on those devices we're talking about, to say these were the most sophisticated counterfeits ever found this far across the line. And that was true at the time. I believe it still remains true. But what we also have seen since then is more and more and more devices dialing out capabilities that are on board and unknown until an attack or after an attack. So they're basically
you're basically saying, and I say this facetiously, but you're basically saying like these devices are like ET phoning home, and
yeah.
If a dirigible happened to be floating across our landscape and decide to set them off for no reason at all, they could have done that.
Correct. And one of the things I like to talk about also is, for that particular example, those devices could have been used as backdoors to allow adversaries in and literally transition a U.S. asset into an adversarial asset, literally in motion.
It's like Go. They could have flipped everything a different color, like right
Correct.
there.
Or Ray, and as Angela's pointing out, pagers. Anybody? No, it's not like we haven't seen.
Never happened to pagers. Come on, like, no one would ever have a pager explode in their pocket. I don't know what you're talking about.
And that's where maybe, I don't know how much Trent will be able to share about his background, but he's spent.
Well, Trent, let's start here. That's a great point, right? So you're now a retired FBI special agent, right? Who is an original plank holder who stood up the National Joint Cyber Task Force. So you saw one of the first hacking of a satellite in real time. I'm assuming this is declassified, so none of us are going to go anywhere. And what was that? Can you tell us some of the circumstances?
Well, the thing, I don't know about it's the first, but it was the criminal hacking that we can. It was actually, we were working on a case. This was the early 2000s, and the FBI had an investigation going on that we were tracking down. And basically, the group that we were going after, this group of hackers, they were able to get into something. We were monitoring what they were doing, and during that monitoring, they had gained access to a satellite in orbit and weren't sure what satellite they got into. They weren't sure what they're doing, and we actually, saw the communications where they're, buffer, they're hitting keys on the keyboard and they're not sure what they're doing, but it's like, you can see the matter. Yeah, you can see exactly what's going on. And,
did the satellite move? Like, do we lose?
Well, that was part of it. Is so trying to figure out what's going on is one, to determine what they were getting into and how it was affecting it. And then it gets into further investigation that I can't go into. But it is, from that original criminal case, it was like, what is going on? And it was kind of like, they're in a satellite. How are we tracking this down real time? And that's back like 2001, before the planes hit.
Not to say that this happened, but this would be like, potentially me and some friends by accidentally coupling into the Burlington Northern switch line back in the 80s, right? Like we could switch trains maybe or move stuff around, and there was no security back then.
Right. And back to exactly. It's a great example because, really, it's the difference between old space and new space. Old space being, government, militaries, intelligence community. The only people in orbit were, their engineering projects, and the communications up and down were encrypted because they didn't need to be. You had to actually know where you're trying to point at the right satellite, control it for that small window. But these guys did it, and actually were doing it with that time with a commercial satellite receiver that they hacked into so they could create that. Think about that. They had to create the connection to the satellite in orbit, and then they were causing effect to make it happen. Now, fast forward to today, if you go to DEF CON Black Hat, last year was the fourth Hackasat competition. where they did actually basically it was a digital and real twin where they had something up in orbit working with the Space Force and down at the Space Pavilion to do a real capture the flag to get into that spacecraft. So I mean, it's not a matter of, I mean, it's already happened. Now it's just, what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, nothing like attacking the global star.
Yeah, well, yeah, and as we rapidly approach commercial space, I mean, we're full on into a commercial space environment right now. It's no longer just governments running it, and it's running faster that way. So what does it mean? So with cybersecurity, from my point of view, and that's what my doctorate's on. Okay, how do we secure it? How do we operate? How do we go forward?
Everybody likes a good spread spectrum SATCOM hack. Come on.
Yeah, well,
Well,
yeah.
they remain some of the easiest formats to hack, right? I mean, they're not
Yes.
defended as you would hope they would be for the kind of work they're doing.
Actually, no, I do hope they were.
Well, yeah,
No,
all these
Angela
are
can tell you. Did they
not
check the
reality.
hardware, Angela, before launch? Tell us about the hardware, Angela. Did they check it
Yeah, did they check the hardware, Angela?
Which hardware?
on
the
satellites?
ones in space, the ones
Do we
people
think
pick
Oh, no,
up.
commercial
not
companies
those.
check the hardware?
Yeah, right, exactly.
They pick them up at Fry's. Hey, we could see some extra parts. What's going on? Actually,
We're just getting stuff at Best Buy. It's all good.
yeah, pick up the best.
But I
Buy
mean, that's a big point of it, though. If you really think about it, once we launch the asset into orbit, a lot of the old satellites were meant to be up there forever. The newer satellites may be burning down, the deorbiting in 5 years. However, it's not that easy to go out and switch something out. You can't go to Fry's, you can't go to Best Buy, pick up a new board that you can drop into it. You're kind of committed at that point.
You tell the folks in Hawthorne and Brownsville that they should be a little more careful. That'd be nice. Huh?
Well, and to Trent's point and Angela's point, I've had the opportunity to talk to different space companies, and they say the most important thing is we don't miss our launch windows. And so that means we are going to do the equivalent of rush out and just grab some commercial off-the-shelf parts that we haven't verified. They're going to do that. And oftentimes you actually have commercial companies literally filing the schematics for what they're planning to put in orbit the day of the launch. And so this is a huge risk.
Well, I mean, imagine the chip shortage, and they had to get stuff out back in the. I mean, that must have been crazy, depending what they put out there. Now, David, I mean, you're a global advisor to not just companies, Fortune 500 companies, and governments. You've been tracking how this is actually being used behind the curtain. So, what are these dual use capabilities? The risks for private companies? I mean, Angela and Trent were talking about, these digital enterprises are actually at risk. What does this mean for CEOs and boards? How should they be looking at this? Because this is not a common board level issue.
No, I mean, boards didn't think they had to care about this because they thought the government was going to take care of it. But exactly for the reasons that I think Angela laid out and Trent laid out, we are now in a realm in which most of the things, whether it's in space, online with the internet, they're commercially provided, not government provided. And so it's fascinating because when I do go to government folks, they say, well, business will take care of it. I go to business and they say government will take care of it. So we have a collective action problem. But for boards, you really do need to go and ask your C-suite and ask your security folks, what is our risk mitigation if, in fact, the very hardware we're using for our communications or our comms is possibly compromised? It is worth knowing because, I mean, you were there, Ray, with Apple rolling out phones that can now connect to satellites. If your CEO or your C-suite is using something that's connecting to a satellite or even 5G is discoverable from space, you may be revealing your CEO's location or your C-suite's location. And if you're traveling overseas, that's a risk.
This already happens. I have a buddy who created this amazing game that everybody plays, and he can see the IP addresses. And sometimes he's like, what's this thing in the middle of the ocean?
There you go. It makes you go.
He's like, no. And he's like, it's moving kind of fast. It's like,
and then also, like, when you think the CEO is connecting to a trusted provider, when in fact it might be a man-in-the-middle attack, how, are you going to see the intellectual property for your very company walk out the door?
It is kind of scary. And actually, those man-in-the-middle attacks are becoming more and more popular. And you also see it actually when schools, like I think one of the high schools my daughter goes to, decided that the school would be the man in the middle. And so I can't wait till the kids hack it. They're going to regret this puppy. Because they wanted to monitor what all the student sites that the kids are looking at. I mean, they're going to get hacked like no tomorrow. Just like, what idiocy, but okay.
Training tomorrow's talent today.
Well, when I was in 8th grade, I managed to hack the whole computing testing system, and almost everybody got an A in that class, and they're wondering why.
Thanks to Ray. He
Yeah,
takes it forward.
I thought I might have known someone. Who knows? Anyways, but this goes to the core of the problem, right? Security should be by design. Right. And I mean, is there a clearinghouse? Is there a equivalent of an underwriter's lab? Like, who's going to be providing that capability going forward? Because I mean, Angela, like CISOs are basically not doing this validation and verification themselves. That's not something they should be doing. I mean, shouldn't this be something that was born on the industry as kind of like a requirement? Not that I'm advocating for regulation. I'm kind of a free market person, but think about that. I mean, like, at that scale, this should be done centralized before you ship something, not after the fact.
Definitely. That's definitely best practice. Well, the hardest thing that we fight against in both government and commercial spaces is it's just going to cost so much. We shouldn't embrace it. The cost factor is so high that it prevents adoption. And I think people are always kind of having their thought process backwards in many ways. And it's not an insult to them. It's not a judgment of it. It's more of a understanding what tactics are. One of the main things we're always looking at Synderys is we're trying to always reveal the places that adversaries are trying to hide and eliminate those opportunities as often as possible. And those opportunities start in hardware. And so one of the things we talk about a lot is all the software patches in the world are not going to solve your hardware baked in problems. And so they become attack surfaces if you don't have proactive measures in place. And a software only solution is not going to get you there. And so basically we're challenging everybody to think differently. The market has been so focused on software for so long that hardware has been ignored. And so what we're finding many times is hardware brings those back doors to play that we don't want. And we find out after the fact that they've been an attack surface rather than proactively preventing them ever becoming one. So part of what we do at Synderys is to try to change that thought and to change that perception so that people do understand there are safe ways to do this, to be cost effective, and also a proactive approach actually saves you money in the long run.
Wow. This is exactly one of the things that we're hoping to see. I mean, we're basically having to do chip level IVMV before anything's shipped out. Is there equivalent kind of like in software that, everything's in the repo, it's already being tested, just pull from the repo? Or is it really too hard to do that at the chip level?
It's pretty difficult.
David, you look like you want to jump in.
It's pretty hard. So
Go ahead, David. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because
I'm not a hardware guy, as you can tell.
Yeah. I think hardware you can do independent verification and validation. Software is just always moving. I mean, let's look at SolarWinds. It was good until it wasn't. It was cleared, and then an update was pushed, and that update is how the maliciousness got in. So I think for software, you actually need a slightly different approach, which is we need to stop doing just forensics. With all respect to forensics and everything like that, that'll let you know of yesterday's issues today. You need to do patterns of life. And what is patterns of life? Well, the good news is what AI presents as a risk is also an opportunity that if you analyze all the logs, and there's actually different organizations that do that. If you analyze all the logs and you establish what normal looks like, then if suddenly, let's say Trent's the CEO of a company and he's suddenly appearing to try and wire $250,000 on a Friday evening at 10 p.m., the AI can say, that doesn't look normal. I'm going to stop that until someone does a physical verification that really is Trent. Now, Trent might have been him and he might be irked, but if it wasn't him, he's going to be really thankful that you stopped it from happening. And so for software, as much as we want to have good design principles, it's just so complicated on top of complicated. I think the solution is we've got to stop doing forensics because we know the threats can live off the land and change, and instead do patterns of life.
So what happens? We do it at the network.
Trent has thoughts too, though. He's lived forensics, so.
But hold on, but should we do this at the network level? Should we, like, when you plug in and everything has to be verified before it goes? Maybe that's an easier way to solve it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the first step. Yeah, no, I think it absolutely is.
The network compromised.
Well, but let's take a step back before we get to the network compromise, because it's that IVMV of the chipset or the hardware, at least she isn't known good. At least you start with, like, okay, when I plug the box in, when I put it in my network, before I load the software, it's the hardware guys versus the software guys. But at least everything was there, because if a chip is compromised, if the code is compromised on the chipset or the board, that's the first level, layer one, literally. How do we start from a firm, solid basis? And then when you get into, David, it makes things a lot easier. What are we dealing with? How do you know what's good? And do it in a timely fashion that it doesn't take 8 months to get through it, or 30 days. Something you can do quickly, and then the forensics. When you come into a forensics as a forensics guy, that's easier for me to go, if something happens, was it valid or not? You're getting it out of the kill chain. You're putting something good in first.
Yes.
Well, actually, so this brings an interesting question. So let's say I am a data center, like an AWS or Google or Microsoft. How do I know they've done their checks? Because the compromise could be at the chip level from something they installed 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
Right. And may not even know. How do you know? And that's the biggest thing is, where in the process you receive it. Everybody may have done everything right and just not know that it's in.
I mean, you could have your own set next moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, to build on Trent's point, the reason why you got to start with the hardware first is those are your sensors.
Well, your chipset. You're not even hardware. Your chipset.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's the nice thing about, again, the thing Angela's praises is they do both the chipset and the entire piece of hardware, so that at least you can say my eyes and ears as to what is going on in my network, I can trust, because that's exactly what an actor is going to do. Is if they can compromise your hardware, so they say everything in your network is all good. Yeah. And so at least get your eyes and ears in the network to have known truth. And then from there, build everything else up there. And as Trent said, part of this is a speed issue. When I was playing the fun role of CIO for a place that had already had 2 advanced persistent threats from nation state actors prior to my arrival, I told my wife, I couldn't even trust the IT systems I was inheriting. But part of it was trying to reduce the time it took to actually at least say something odd is happening. That odd thing might be a hardware issue, software issue, or it might be an attack. But as Trent said, finding out 8 months after the fact that something bad happened doesn't help a CIO or a chief information security officer in the moment. And so I think it's about, where do I place my attention and where do I at least say something odd is going on here? Now I want to get an investigator like Trent to dive deeper and figure out, is that just a hardware issue, software issue, or something more sophisticated?
And I'll underscore that. I'll give you an example, real life thing. So we're actually working an investigation, compromised into a large network. The investigation took it down, the actual hardware equipment that was compromised. We pull it out, and it's from a large, well-known manufacturer that provides most of networking gear. And we open it up, and was it all good? And we're working with the company. They go, well, it's not ours. And we're saying, well, what does it do? We don't know. It's not ours. And that's the problem. This is after, now you're getting into long-term investigations where, do you have the time and money to actually decompile that chip? What's in there? Because everybody thought it was good. Came in the packaging. It looked like it. Think about it. It's that black box. It looks good. It has that new computer smell. And you plug it in, and it's operating within parameters until it's not. And then what do you do?
Or our technology reveals that the components aren't what they say they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
they don't match the exterior packaging.
So if they're not doing their, independent validation and verification for their ASIC chips or anything on the back end, where do we stop this? Right. Is everyone just letting it happen? So
you do present 2 interesting. So let me take the government view, and then I'll let Angela take the business view, because we as a country really have 2 choices. One is we identify those things that are the most essential to protect, because part of the challenge is we haven't brought on our own foundries yet. You don't have U.S. foundries, and even if you did have U.S. foundries, you should still verify it, because a bad actor might compromise your foundry. Or maybe we'll see the administration, I don't want to get ahead of them, but maybe we'll see the administration call it out and say this is an issue. We have had Salt Typhoon, which, from open source press reporting, was at least 9 major telecos and ISPs compromised by an actor. But that's the government perspective. I think Angela can share the business perspective as to what can businesses do.
Businesses can, at very similar to government, we're all buying the same basic technology from the same vendors with the same issues. The supply chains don't vary much between what's in government and what's in private sector environments. And so the measures are very similar. You've got to take a more proactive approach on looking at what you're putting in your networks. It's not just making sure everybody's email works and that the network can deliver what it needs to deliver at any particular time to your employees. You have to think about, as a business owner and business leader, you have to think about what happens if we do get breached. What's the damage to, if you're publicly traded, what's the damage to our stock price? What's the damage to our brand profile? We've got to think about those things as leaders of those organizations, because as we've seen, they can be devastating to corporations who are victims of large scale breaches. Any company that operates globally, they're going to be a target, because the main thing the bad actors want, hackers are after, is your PII, your personally identifiable information. So anybody that has it, so think about it, everywhere you shop, everywhere you bank, everywhere you send an email to and through, all those places are going to be targets, because they're your healthcare, they're collecting information about you that is going to make that organization a target, and you as a consumer are not even aware. So when those organizations do get attacked, the revelations that come, and the I guess the subsequent litigation as well. Think about all the people that now have causes of action against your entity for making their personal information vulnerable to attack and to
this harvesting before Y2Q is only going to accelerate.
Yes.
I mean, we keep seeing this, but back to some of the earlier points, David, you made, like it's about prioritization. So Trent, I mean, you're doing a PhD on focusing on space-based assets. Do you think this will be priority number one, the space-based assets, or do you think it'll be like, utilities or something like that to keep our power grids and water systems up and running?
I think for space, I think this absolutely has to be the first priority, because space is really a system of systems. And so everybody operating space, it's no longer going to be the chief information security officer's responsibility, or the security officer and the guys at the front gate wearing the blue jacket type things. Everybody from the CEO on down needs to understand this and integrate it, because space is an away game, especially in commercial. So before, with gov space, you have militaries, intelligence communities protecting it. On commercial space, I need to validate everything that's going in that asset before it goes up. So at least you know what the known good is.
So how do we have 10,000 satellites in space, right?
Oh yeah, we're past 10,000, up from 1,000 15 years ago, and we're supposed to be 100,000 in 5 years. 100,000 satellites.
Wow,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And also, one thing I wanted to say too is, from a business perspective, and this happens in government as well, everybody gets really worried about who's going to get blamed for the decisions of the past. And so one of the things we preach a lot is, we're not here to blame anybody. We're not here to get anybody in trouble. We're here to make sure the future is secure. So we're not going to talk about who made that decision that turned out to be bad, that looked fine when they made it. We're not here to fire them, eliminate them. We're here to improve the baseline and increase the security for everybody from a judgment-free space. We're here to help and make the environment more secure.
So when a certain government claims that another chip manufacturer has back doors, is it because they have back doors? I mean, that they're thinking of maybe there are back doors for this chip manufacturer, or is it just something we should just be able to prove quickly with IVMV?
Well, so what you really hit the nail on the head on is what used to be a game between nation states, because technology has gotten, the good news is technology is increasingly available and affordable through companies, is now making companies the targets of multiple nation states.
Oh yeah.
And so, as I tell people, you may not care about geopolitics, but geopolitics cares about you.
And just to amplify, to give you an idea, we're in the next space race. So Secretary Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, also the acting administrator for NASA right now, announced a week ago today that we are returning to the moon, we the United States, in 2026. And we will land on the moon in 27. That's the national thing. But there's already been multiple completely private launches to the moon and landing on the moon with assets. So as we go forward, what does this mean and where we're going, and how is that going to disrupt, this entire operation and what we're trying to do?
So this is going to be, this is bigger than a space and cybersecurity issue. I mean, this goes down to your toaster, right? I
Yeah.
mean, not that anybody
Well,
would take out my toaster, but you get the
yeah.
smart homes. I mean, let's replace anything
Yeah.
that's called smart is hackable. So anything that's your smart home or smart devices
I'm
are
building a dumb home intentionally because of that.
I'm
Yeah.
for you. I'm the same way. None of my devices go past my first floor. Just saying.
All right.
That's smart though. I mean, you start thinking about all the devices that are in your house. I was speaking to someone recently who's got 5 teenagers and basically pushing about 3 terabytes of data a day out of his
They're
house.
leaking data like a sieve.
Right, exactly. But he started looking. So with even with all those people and all those devices in his house, his smart washing machine is actually transmitting more data than anything else, the rest of his devices combined. So why does anybody care so much about what's in your washing machine?
Or maybe it's been compromised and it's really a money laundering for a cartel.
True laundering machine, right?
Yes, exactly. Trent might be able to comment on some of the things he's seen.
What's in that extra spin cycle?
Exactly.
But, I mean, I think really coming into it, so going to some investor, venture capital, CEO, you're running company. I think the number one word is resilience. Is that as you operate and as we move into this next world, next frontier, stuff's going to happen. You're going to have an attack. You're going to have an issue. What's in there? Have you planned to secure it, but to resume operations afterwards? That is key. That has to be a part of it. And every business line in a company has to really appreciate it. You can't just offload it or bolt it in. It has to be that core DNA. The companies that do that in the future, I think, will succeed. The other ones will probably not do as well.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And one of the things we're really worried about across the board is really, the impact of digitization on national security, right? I mean, that's really been something that we've not really paid attention to. We haven't done it by design. That may be one of those requirements that get put into place, right? I mean, it might happen just at the factory level. At least you catch it at the factory level. What you do aftermarket or with resellers or distributors, that should be owned by the company. Right,
well, and I think, Ray, the good lens to look at it is whenever new technologies come out, actors are going to use it for criminal means. I mean, when the railroad came out, we had great train robberies and such, and we had to figure out what we had to do to catch folks that were robbing trains. When the automobile came out, we started to have interstate crime where people, Bonnie and Clyde and others would commit crimes.
No, they were just moving liquor across state lines.
And I raised that because actually how the FBI got created was the automobile was the disruptive technology that required it. So we shouldn't be surprised that when new technologies, including AI, but even then, the miniaturization of hardware and chips, there's going to be actors that will use it. And the question is it going to be like the Wild Wild West? Or is it going to be like mafia tactics for a while? When will we get some stability? I think it's actually going to be more turbulence in the short term before it gets better.
Well, I mean, back to the pager example. I mean, it'd be crazy if people had kill switches in all these satellites that would just suddenly go off. I mean, that would just wreak havoc right there. I mean,
well, especially because low Earth orbit satellites can be going, 15,000 miles.
17,005.
Yeah, exactly. The
500 miles per hour.
If these things collide, we could not use space for the next 75 to 100 years. So
yeah, I mean, there's nothing to fix that. I mean, the LEOs will take us out.
Yeah.
Well, and we're transitioning. So you're going from 1940 copper communication system. Then you went to coaxial. Then we went to fiber. Now we have cellular and RF. Then microwave or somewhere in between. Don't hold me to the order. But now it's already up into low Earth. It's orbital. But that's going to transition more because it's easier to go to orbit than pull new lines, especially if you're crossing the Midwest or areas of countries like Africa where it's large geographic areas. You're going straight to satellite. You're not going to dig and trench copper lines back to a central.
I love building 5G towers. They're so cheap.
Yeah, more and more of them. But I mean, that's that reliance that's going to come out of space. There was a hack or there was an outage that happened in the 90s that disrupted communications from satellite, but in Los Angeles, I was there, that you couldn't pump gas, you couldn't use the ATM. It was how it was being routed at the time. It just cut off. So it just stopped. And how are you going to work through that? And now here we are in 2025. What does that mean? So that resilience and, what are your paths to communication? Let's talk about DisrupTV. This is where, what's going to be. I mean, we are right on the edge or past the edge into that new frontier. of technology. What does it mean? So, Ray, let me put it to you this way: if you could go back to the '80s, late '80s, '90s, right on the edge of the internet boom, and if you had an ISP in your bedroom, people and everybody's buying up anything, think of all of those early companies, Google, Apple, as it's going on. What is it going to be for the next decade? 2025, what's the pivot and how's it going to change to where we are? We're moving that fast again.
Yeah.
Manufacturing in space, mining in space, communications, quantum, maybe that'll solve it because it needs to be up in space because you need absolute zero to have that quantum computer work. And that's what we're trying to get through.
It's going to be huge. I mean, especially when we get the quantum, right?
Right. Yeah, Q-Day, when Q-Day hits. Right.
Well, let's one other additional dimension I'd like to say. We're seeing dramatic change when it comes to drones. I had an opportunity earlier this week it was, of course, 9/11. Trent was with 9/11. I was involved with 9/11 too. But think about drones, because last year, Russia was fielding against Ukraine an average of 130 drones a week. Now, 12 months later, they're fielding on average 100 drones a day. So 130 a week to now 800 a day. That should be something we take at heart here, because we're probably 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years away from a drone like 9/11 attack here in the United States. That also raises a question, because I'm pretty sure most drone manufacturers aren't verifying their hardware. And so you talked about the pagers, but what if we saw something where drone swarms were used? And we already know, for example, there are some parts of California where bad actors are using drones to survey the homes that they want to later do crime. And so these things, again, with any new technology, there's going to be people that use it for good and other people that use it for less than good. I'm not saying we should be pessimistic, because I think we will get through it. We just got to increase our decision speed and our cycle time.
And let me add one thing to your drone, David, because there's a very low Earth orbit now, and that's drones.
Oh,
so
exactly.
It's not just delivering your pizza from Walmart or war. It's
Wait,
like
500 feet lower orbit enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like very low Earth orbit. It's changing. The game's changing or changed.
It has changed. It's going to continue to. Yes.
This is going to get crazy.
So the question is, Ray, have you verified that your microphone really is just your microphone and not calling home?
It's been calling somewhere. I have no idea. I can't tell whether it's actually signal. It's like when I drive and like some mysterious air tag shows up, and I'm like, "Who air tagged me?" It's like, I don't know. I think it's someone's.
Or check your gaming mouse.
So
we've seen extra chips embedded in gaming mice as well.
Well, Ray travels so much. I think he is that. You probably did pick up something.
Well, there's a story of someone who once showed up to, a hotel in China and had to rip out all the bugs in a hotel room and hand it to someone in the lobby. And I thought they weren't very happy with it. So no, I haven't been to China in a while, I guess.
No. I'm sure if you went there, you might be welcomed, but you might not be welcomed out. So,
but I might not be welcomed out. Yes.
Well, to your point, what you just brought up, though, I see like being it. I really look for the day when you have that IVMV capability, that it's just like a electricity tester you push in your outlet at home, and whether or not you get the 3 greens or if it's wired correctly or not, that you actually have, there's a device that I can plug I send away, they send me my device, I take it out, and I'm able to check it to verify that it's what it should be. And it's not counterfeit, it's not broken, stuff like that. That should be on everybody's, in everybody's workbench.
This would never happen at a repair facility. Come on. They wouldn't even steal your data or your crypto keys. Come on.
So getting back to your question though, Ray, how do we help boards? I'd be interested in Trent's thoughts and Angela's thoughts, because boards need to know about this, but they don't need to be paralyzed. They need to have actionable steps. So maybe an actual
other tools out there to make it easier for folks to be able to do this on a regular basis. Angela, what do you think?
There definitely are. I think the main thing is you can't just buy something off the shelf to solve these problems. You need to have them customized for your environment, for your particular company's needs, what the work is, make it fit. So it's not just hey, I can go buy a package of security down the street at Best Buy. It really is more of a consulting process, and that gets you to a better end result as well. So that's one of the things to think about. It is something also to think about when you're looking at what exactly are we securing? Are we securing our product? Are we securing the delivery of our product? What's the mission of the company? Think about a pharmaceutical company. They don't just care about the data within their company. They've got to worry about the product they create, making it safely, and that the whatever pharmaceuticals they're selling are not being interfered with in their supply chain as they're delivered to patients. We've already seen a couple of cases where packages or shipments full of particular types of drugs have been interfered with in their supply chain, and they wind up actually making people much sicker as opposed to providing the healing effect. So those are the way adversaries think. And so I think it's important for boards of these corporations to understand these are not just government level fights. The fight is definitely, it's against government entities, it's against commercial entities, it's against consumers, and it is a multi-layered conflict now. And so that brings a higher level of responsibility, but I don't think any of these C-suites and boards of directors need to be scared. It's just a matter of understanding and being equipped for what the landscape is today.
Trent, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think to bring up, especially boards, when you go up and when I brief boards and CEOs. So people are all very familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework that they have out. MITRE also came out with their MITRE DEFEND framework. Now, I point the boards to this because the model is actually there's an entire group of hardening before you even getting into it. So you're trying to harden your network, and it has all the questions you can ask. And then how do you detect it? Up till now, it's the event happened, the place burned down, and I'm going to try and do the forensics to figure out what happened and then chase the bad guys, which is fine from my old FBI point of view. But really, you're trying to stop it before. How do you harden the network so it doesn't even happen? That's really what boards need to ask. Yeah. How am I hardening this? Because I don't care if we got shot at, it didn't happen.
David, last word.
Just amplifying what Angela and Trent said. If the board should say, what are we doing to get left of boom? Booms may happen, but what can we do to try and be more preventative? And then if a boom does happen, how can we be quick in detecting it? So that way we mitigate and contain whatever it is. So try to get ahead of the curve as fast as you can. But then should something bad happen, the board should be asking the C-suite, how will we know that we will be responding faster than we would otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible. Digitization's benefits and digitization's disadvantages are all here in one.
It was the best of times. It was the more challenging of times.
But yeah, Angela, Trent, David, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ray.
No, thanks
Thank
for sharing.
You, Ray. Great
crap out of everyone. I'm just kidding. I mean, helping us figure out how to make our lives better.
Onwards and upwards together. Thanks, Ray.
Awesome.
See you all. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, everybody. So thanks for being back here. And of course, amazing session here. We'll catch folks in the green room. But as you can tell, main thing here really is like our hardware and our chipsets are at risk. They've never been tested. There are vulnerabilities that bad actors have put them into play. I think one of the important things that we should all be thinking about is how we protect from that. We should do it at the source level, and we should also do it when they're in production. And hopefully this becomes a much bigger issue. For those following this at the board level, these are cybersecurity issues that are related to business resilience and also related to your ability to actually function and operate as a fiduciary responsibility for your shareholders and stakeholders. So something very important to follow. Next week, episode number 411, we have Mike Hayes, Managing Director, Insight Partners, and author of Mission Driven, Natalie Nixon, author of Move, Think, Rest, Redefine Productivity and Our Relationship with Time. One of the important pieces that are out there. It's episode 411. If it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Catch us 11 a.m. to Pacific Eastern, almost all Fridays. And more importantly, Vala Afshar will be back next week. So thanks a lot, everybody. We'll catch you in the show.